Hey, ladies, welcome to another Self-Love Conversations. My name is Gloria Ward, and today I want you to be able to get your pen and your paper together because we have Ilyssa Panitz, who is the only divorce journalist and columnist committed to helping others navigate this major life transition. Now, I'm reading some of her bio, but what I want you to hear is that if you're thinking about a divorce, if you're going through a divorce, this is a conversation that you want to listen to so you can know exactly what to do and you can hear from an expert. So, Ilyssa, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Yes, so the big thing is because I am divorced. I've been divorced for a couple of years now, and I can say the biggest question is when you know your spouse or you want a divorce, what are some of the things that you need to do or prep for? Because that you're going through so many emotions, right? So you don't really know what to do. And especially if you're on a side where you don't want the divorce. So if it's happening, what are some of the things you need to prep for?
Well, you need to prep in three different areas: emotional and mental, financial and legal. I always tell people you really need a very good therapist, a social worker, somebody you can really talk to. This is going to be an emotional roller coaster. And you really need somebody who can be with you every step of the way. You're going to need it not only for yourself, but if you're working, because you're going to have to deal with all the craziness with the office and clients. If you
Yeah.
have children, obviously your spouse, your family, the other family, the friends, there's going to be a lot coming at you. And you really need to make sure everything up here is very healthy. It will also impact everything else that we are going to talk about. And May was Mental Health Awareness Month. So we really devoted every single column and every single episode to talking about this on many different fronts. The next one is preparing yourself financially. And this is where a lot of people cut short. I always say, if you think a divorce may be on the horizon, if somebody just asked you for a divorce, before you call an attorney, call somebody who's been doing your finances. It could be your CPA, it could be your financial planner, it may be where you bank. Look at all the credit cards, because I know it sounds cold, and it was one of the first things an attorney said to me, but this all boils down to dissolving a business, and it's all going to come down to the numbers. Why
Yeah.
is that? Because depending where you live, if it's a community property state, if it's a equitable distribution state, everything is going to get divided between you and this other person, and you really need to know everything you have. So you want to check if there's a mortgage on the house, how much is left. You may want to do a title search and look if there's any liens on, on the house. You want to get a hold, if you've been filing taxes with your spouse, you want to get a hold of all those tax transcripts. You want to look at credit card statements, bank statements. If you have brokerage account, maybe stocks, you want to get anything and everything so you get a real handle on where you stand financially. And then once you have all that in place, then you want to look for an attorney, and you want to find an attorney that is right for your situation. And
Exactly.
this is the most common question I get: how do I know what's right? And
Right.
it all boils down to, well, what kind of divorce are you going to have? Is this going to be amicable? Is your spouse willing to fully disclose and keep everything very open, keep the conversation flowing? And if so, you can do something called collaborative or mediation. It is a ton cheaper than doing litigation. And that's where a lot of people and their heads start going. And that's where, you start thinking of all those terms you hear: pit bull and shark. And that's where the bills can get very expensive, because there is a lot of anger flying around. And I say this all the time: anger is expensive. You want to keep as much money for you and your family as possible. And, we could talk a little bit about that later. But those are the three areas you really need to focus on, because that's really what this is all about.
Yeah, and what's crazy, Alyssa, is that a lot of women, and even I could say myself, you want the forever, right? And you don't really want to get the divorce. But can you talk about the other side? Those women who let their husband have everything, like I did, right? So everything was him and everything was that, where you come to find out when, if he asks for a divorce or you're ready to get a divorce, you basically are coming out with nothing because there's nothing that's there, right? Can you speak about that and the dynamic that works around that when it comes to a divorce? Because everything is in his name.
So again, depending on where you live, you want to work with the right attorney. And the right attorney, remember, this attorney is going to be your advocate, your voice. They're there to protect you. And so I always tell people that one of the first stages that you're going to go through when you go through a divorce is called, here in New York, they call it discovery. And
Hmm.
that's where you and the other side have to basically disclose everything. So if you work, your paycheck, if you have a bank account, a credit card statement, you have cars, you have a home together, everything has to be fully displayed, because what they're going to look at is what was what they call separate. Maybe you
Hmm.
came into the marriage with something, maybe the other side came in, maybe you didn't use any marital funds to fund whatever it was that you came in with, and that may be able to stay yours. And then there's stuff that you guys have together. And if you have stuff together and you both have been contributing, guess what? You may be entitled to it.
Right.
You were just as much a part of this marriage as the other side. And a lot of times I get, but I was the stay-at-home parent and I was here taking care of the kids. Well, you know
Yes, yes.
what? Believe it or not, that is not looked down upon the way people think that it is. A lot of times, and listen, men stay home.
Yeah,
Also, there are a lot of women. It's funny, the Kelly Clarkson divorce made headlines because she was the one, just like Britney Spears, paying her spousal support and child support. And people are like, wait, what? And I said,
right.
because they're what's considered the money spouse. There are a lot of women now in corporate America who make more than men, but we are so
Hmm.
programmed to think it's always the men that are the money spouse. And a lot of women have come very far and are the ones who actually bring home more. The court sees that. And
Hmm.
in some cases, depending on the situation, they may be the ones writing those monthly checks. But again, every situation is so different. But, regardless of that, the other side can say, listen, somebody had a very demanding job. It required a lot of their attention. We needed somebody home with the children. And you know what? It's always, courts will tell you and lawyers will tell you, you've got to focus on the children. Children first, children first. That does carry weight. And people should not think, oh my God, I'm not going to get anything. No, that's
Yeah.
actually not true.
Hmm. Because I was gonna say, what happens when you have kids and you was the stay-at-home mom, and now who gets the custody of the kids? How does that work? If the man was the breadwinner in the house, does the courts look at it as, okay, well, the children need their mom, so you can have full custody or whatever? Like, how does the children dynamic work with it when you're trying to get a divorce?
So when people hear the word custody, everybody starts freaking out. And
Absolutely.
it's a
Yeah.
very scary word. But
Absolutely.
it's really a legal term for decision making. Now what
Okay.
they're calling things is parenting plans, and it sounds a little bit nicer. So basically, I never use genders when we tell stories, because we never know who's going to be listening to our show or reading our column, and we talk to an everybody audience. So we'll always say parent A, parent B, and that
Hmm.
way, depending on the situation, we hope this is applicable to everybody. But they're going to look at both parents, and for the most part, again, depending where you live, they are always going to start by offering equal time, or as much equal time as possible, because they always want children to have the opportunity to have relationships with both parents. Children should have that right. Even though children are young, children should have rights to have that opportunity. Customary, how it's always been done, is yes, children live predominantly with mom. Dad usually gets the Wednesday dinner, the every other weekend. That's usually how it's done. But there are parents I know where they do 1 week on, 1 week off. For
Mhm.
example, Parent A may have, the week of, June 3rd. Dad may have the week of June 7th, June 10th. I'm making up these dates,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
and they try to do that, and that way everybody gets equal time, and the children have the opportunity to foster relationships with both sides. When it
But
comes,
Issa, is that court regulated where you have to do these times, or
no,
is that something you come up with and what
everybody comes
happens?
up everybody
Okay,
comes up with plans that work for them. So
cool.
I actually have a friend, and her former spouse travels a lot. That's
Hmm.
just his job. They kind of knew that going into it. So, they worked out an arrangement based on his travel, because
Hmm.
he's in the world of sales. So he has to be very present in a lot of different locations. So, she's like, and it was very amicable, but she's like, look, I kind of have to be a little loosey goosey with stuff because of his schedule. So even though she may have like her two children most of the time, usually when he's here and he's on home base, where they both reside in the same area, then she gives him the opportunity to have the time. But again, every situation is so different. For the most part, what they do try to do is they try to create a plan that offers the children stability and familiarity, because that's what children need. We all need
Right,
that, even as adults.
right.
And it gives you the opportunity to plan your life. It gives the other side opportunity to plan theirs. So people find schedules that really work for them. And there's nothing that's really set in stone. I've heard people come up with very creative things. It just has to be what works for the both of you, and always the best interest of the children. Usually people will do for like the vacation times. So let's say it's the Thanksgiving break, it is the winter break, it is your February or spring break. Usually what a lot of people will do is do odd and even. So maybe you have the children Thanksgiving on the odd years. Your former spouse has them the even years. The whole idea is to give both parents equal opportunity. They usually also write in agreements the right of first refusal. So let's just say, we'll make believe you had the children this coming weekend, but this coming weekend now you have to be out of town. You
Right.
give the other parent the opportunity, and then if they can't, then you can find other arrangements, such as a sleepover, another relative. But it's customary, you always give the other side that first opportunity.
And I have to say, you make it sound like it's such a nice, wonderful thing that can happen, right?
It's
Because
not always.
yeah, it just sounds great because you lay out all your finances, you make sure you get yourself a good attorney, you make sure that whatever it is that you guys agree with the kids, that is amicable. And at the same time, the reality is that you have all these emotions going on with it where you wish it was like that, right? And you wish that everything could go that way in the real world. Now, what are some of the things that we should not be doing? Because those are the things that we usually do because there's high emotions, there's anger, there's fear. That's the biggest thing. There's fear, and it could be on both sides or one side. So, what are some of the things that we have to avoid while
I
trying
would
to?
Well, like I said earlier, anger is expensive. So the longer you want to go yell at the other side or have your attorney yell at the other side, that's money. And
Wow.
it's money you do not need to spend.
Hmm.
So I always say, I know it's hard and I know it can be challenging, but try to leave your anger at the door. So let's make believe you're involved in a divorce and the other side was having an affair and there was a third party involved. Okay. And it's one of the most common reasons people get divorced. What you
Hmm.
have to do is remember that if this is a situation that's going to be litigated, okay, again, that's very expensive. Attorneys can run anywhere from $300 an hour to, in New York, over $1,200 an hour. And that's just for
Wow.
the attorney. You're not even talking about all the people on the staff who have to work on your case. So
Mm,
always keep that in mind, that the second you make contact with them, they make contact with you, they make contact with the other side, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. And if you don't want to lose the shirt off your back, really, again, I know it's hard, but I say try to stay in a narrow tunnel and focus on just getting it done. Your
right.
attorney, your attorney and the court really doesn't care. What they will care about is, did the other side use money that should have been intended for you and your children to support this other person? That's called marital waste. You can recoup that. So look at it as like, if your spouse spent, I'm making this up, $5,000, on his girlfriend, guess what? That's probably now going to cost him $7,500. And
Mhm.
so you should be laughing like, ha ha ha, it's costing you and I'm profiting from it. It's
Right.
it's a very hard thing to do, but this is why you need a therapist. This is why you need other outlets to keep your head in a good place. Working out, joining a support group, doing things for yourself. One thing that I always do when stress gets to me is I'm addicted to TikTok. So when I feel like I can't take it, I turn it on and it makes me laugh. And I find music videos and I just start like kind of going like this. And my head gets in a much better space where I myself can say, okay, I can
Right.
deal. And again, everything up here is going to affect everything else that we're talking about. So you really need to stay clear. The courts, your attorneys, they've heard it all. There is nothing you're going to tell them that they haven't heard a million times over, or things that are probably been worse.
Right.
Your relationship with your attorney is going to be one of the most intimate ones you ever have. So you have to fully disclose. Again, I'm going to go back to something I said earlier. They are your advocate. They cannot like find something out and turn to you and be like, why did you tell me that? Why wasn't I
Mhm.
prepared? Have, go in fully loaded with information. And when you have all this information, you can be very empowered. And the columns and the episodes, that's what we do. We teach you everything and anything you need to know about preparing for the divorce. You're in the thick of it after, all the things that can happen. Because what we've noticed is that a divorce makes people feel vulnerable, and they
It
start saying
does.
like this,
Oh,
they're,
yes.
they're going like this and they're this. When we start arming them with information, they start sitting up and their back is much straighter and they feel like, I got this. I learned this. I know how to make that decision, and they can get through the process a lot faster. And again, it's staying in that narrow tunnel. Leave all the other stuff out. Use that for your therapist. Use it to go out with your girlfriends or your guy friends, like over a glass of wine, a beer, bowling, whatever you want to do. Sitting outside, it's beautiful now with the summer, but don't bring that into the courtroom.
Right.
It's really there to just discuss the numbers and the best interest of the children. That's it.
And
Um,
I like what you said, because and it does work. The more you arm yourself with information, the calmer you get, because now you're really focused on your case and what you're doing, your divorce, and really understanding what the terms are, sitting with your attorney, and you're really, like you said, in that vulnerable state. But now you're like armed with information where you can really know what your options are. You're not coming to the table and you're just like, woe unto me. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, where I'm going to live, how things are going to work. And then you're having, this big breakdown because you have not sat and really figured out how you're going to, make this new journey work for yourself. And I
right.
would say too, and I know you would agree with this, stay off social media trying to go ahead and bash and do all these things, because that doesn't help either, right?
No, it actually works against you. And we
Mhm.
talk about this a lot because we live in a world of social media.
Yes, we
And
do.
again, depending where you live. So you want to go on a social media and say a lot of bad things about the other side. Well, that can be used as slander. And if you
Mm,
are trying to hurt somebody, their emotional, their mental state. It can hurt them professionally, which then hurts the family because they may lose a job, because they become a liability. Now they may not have the ability to earn. So what you may be entitled to, alimony is now called spousal support or maintenance, depending where you live, that may impact what you get. That may impact child support. Everything is done by guidelines, and they'll follow the guidelines of what you can get. But if you really hurt this other side and they are now not able to contribute the way they did because of something you caused, that can hurt you. And not only that, but you also have to think about the damage it does to your kids. So
Oh,
even with people with smaller children, it doesn't matter. You know, they could be sitting at the dinner table with mom and dad, and mom and dad could be having this conversation like, oh my God, did you hear so and so and so and so? And they're listening to this because they're friends with the kids. And then they say something on the playground to your kids, and it's like, now
right.
what? So you have to really think of the big picture, not only what this can do financially to your family, but also what it can do to, to your children. And that's where people, I get it, our emotions take over. They're very overpowering, and we sometimes do things that we shouldn't. I always tell people it's an exercise that I love to do. I'm like, all the things that you want to say to somebody, put in an email and find your friend, your confidant friend, and send it to them. So I have a friend, we do this all the time. And when they call me and they're just screaming about everything, I'm like, isn't this something you wish you could tell them and post? Yes. So they put it all in an email and they send it to me, and then we laugh about it. And it makes them feel good that they feel that they got it out. It was
That's
in a
right.
safe, closed, safe environment kind of thing. And then they feel like they can move past. But don't let your emotions get the best of you so much so that you are going to make what could be a very permanent and damaging mistake to everybody. And people say, well, how do I do that? How do I get rid of the stress? And there are so many things people can do, and they're free. So breathing is known to limit our stress. So
Mm,
doing deep breaths, like you just breathe in and slowly exhale. You could do this before you go into negotiations, before you go into the courtroom. You can just sit there, close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and slowly exhale out. Breathing is known to limit stress. And when
yes.
you do that, your head thinks a lot more clearly. We just did an event that I hosted. We learned a meditation exercise, and
Yeah.
it's thing super easy you can do. There's a lot of free apps that people can download because money is tight when you're going through a divorce, and you can
Yeah.
do something like that. There's an app that I like called Calm. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I just plug it in and I find, I don't know, like music, like, calming sounds like the water from the creek or the waves or, crickets from nature. But you listen to it and you just sit, you close your eyes for a few minutes, maybe 5, and it
Mm-hmm.
really does have a calming effect. And that's what people need to remember, that when you stay calm, you're going to make better decisions, you're going to make the right decisions and less mistakes. And mistakes are costly. So again, I'm going to go back to, you want to bring all that anger in, that's great, but it's going to be very expensive, and you're not going to be happy with the bill at the end of the month. Or
Okay.
if you realize you were entitled to this in the divorce but you only got that, well, let's rewind and see how you got there. Don't make
Mhm.
don't make a mistake like that. It's not worth it.
Right. And I would say to the women out there or some of the men that listen to this, even if you still have to stay in the house with the person and you guys are going through whatever it is that you're going through with the divorce, tr- eh, go in another room, try to find a way to keep your sanity. If you have kids that are in the house and you guys are going through this, just make sure that you keep your sanity for the kids. If you can't move out or you can't, split the way you want to, then use the house as a way, become roommates until you can make it happen. Because sometimes you can't leave, right? Where, you're going through a divorce, but you guys are still in the same house. You're trying to sell the house or do whatever it is that you're trying to do, and you still got to see each other every day. Or you're watching your spouse basically walk out the door, which was like the hardest thing for me, where you knew it was over. You're in the house, they're out the house, or he's in the house and I'm out the house. And so it can take a toll on you mentally. But it's like what Ilyssa said, you got to be able to arm yourself, understand what your divorce is about, understand the things that you are entitled to, what you can get, and really start to put a plan together to go ahead and rebuild your life, because it's going to be a big transition, and then you're going to have to be able to rebuild your life. So those are the things that I would say that's important. So how do we arm ourselves with your information so we can figure out, and be encouraged about being comfortable if someone is going through a divorce?
Yeah, and one thing I want to follow up with, if you do have to stay in the house together, a lot of people, especially in this economy right now, a lot of people do what's called nesting situations. And
Hmm.
you can have your attorneys draw up an agreement.
Oh,
So
wow.
yes, and it's very common. People actually do it for a while. So it may be, during the hours when you have the children, you're in this part of the house, and the other person, may be in a different part of the house. A lot of people have furnished basements. So maybe
Mhm.
one person lives primarily in the basement, but people get onto schedules and hopefully everybody abides by them. And in terms of how to push forward, I always say, the D in divorce stands for do over. So
Yeah.
everybody wants a do over in life. People always say, oh, if I could do it over, well, now you can. And how do you do that? One of the best things I always say is music is very healing. And
Hmm.
it did wonders for me. I found a song that to me became my mantra, and it's Kelly Clarkson's Stronger.
I knew it. That's how it was
I
mine too. It was
I
mine
listen to
too.
it 3 times a day, every
Yep.
day, like without question. And
Hmm.
it really spoke to me, whatever. I would always find opportunity. So, for example, if you're nesting, you can listen to it maybe if you have to walk past the other person, or if you know the other person's in the house and you're having a very down moment. But music can be very healing, and music has a lot of positive affirmations in them. And we talk about this a lot on the show. When you can, and you can Google it, my computer's right here, you can Google anything now, and you can
Hmm.
get the lyrics. And if you look
Yep.
at a lot of lyrics, like even Tina Turner, we just did a big tribute to her. I mean, talk about the ultimate survivor. She survived a horrific marriage, a horrible divorce. And
Hmm.
if you listen to a lot of her music, it was full of positive affirmations. And she was such a shining example of how you can get through it. And anybody can get through anything. So I also found a wonderful exercising program. It was kind of like one of these like boot camp kind of things. And it was great for me. It pushed me, it challenged me. It made me feel great. I met people in my class. Sometimes we would sit and everybody would just grab coffee together. And you got it. It's such a great opportunity to mix things up, to meet new people. And when I say that, because somebody said, how do I do that, Ilyssa? I'm like, start asking those you know. Start saying, like, hey, you know what? I'm going through a divorce. If you know anybody else going through it, male or female, it doesn't matter. I would love to meet them. I am looking to meet people. Maybe we can get on the same schedule. And I have somebody to go to dinner with or to the movies with. Um,
Right.
and and that's how you start doing it. And pretty soon everybody's going to know somebody, and you will start building a circle of friends, which will become a great support system. And that is so important. They will understand what you're feeling. It will be a lot more relatable. The chances are people have gone through what you've gone through, so they can be the sounding board that you need at that moment. And that it's you have all these chances to do new things. And especially another common question I get: what do I do when I don't have the kids? I've never not had the kids before. Now I'm this.
That's true.
And especially more for women, because that's really more of what we do. We're always the ones running with them and doing all this other stuff. And I'm like, okay, one of the greatest things I did was I looked down at my calendar and I remember the first time that my kids weren't here. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go get a manicure, pedicure. And then I
Yeah,
ran into one of my friends in town, and she was like, "Oh my God, I just ran to get coffee." I'm like, "You got time?" She goes, "Yeah." And we sat, we got coffee, and I could do all this.
that's
And
right.
I went to see my college roommates once for, for dinner, and we hadn't done it in so long. And all of a sudden, I was realizing that instead of looking at it negatively, I was trying to find something positive to do. And when I did positive things for myself, I think it reflected on me, and then it reflected on my children. And then it was like, "Oh
Absolutely.
my God, mom, what'd you do? Oh my God, mom, I saw you did this. Oh my God, mom, you did." And it was just, and it's fun for them to listen to, because listen,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, every kid wants, the parents to stay together. But when that's not possible, at least let them see you be happy. And when you're happy, your children will be happy. And, parents set the tone for all this. So, try as best you can to put on a brave face. It is okay if they see you cry. They should know that you loved, the other parent very dearly
right.
at one point, and you are hurting too, but you will all get through this together. But again, when you have these pockets of time, use it again for therapy, to do little things for yourself. We talk a lot about self-love, self-care.
Mhm.
And one thing I get all the time is, "But Ilyssa, it's so expensive." I'm like, "Go to the dollar store." I said,
Right.
"You can find all these great products to do a spa treatment at home or with your friends for under like $5. You
That's
can find the
true.
facial cream, the mask, the lotions. Trust me, they're all there." I'm
Right.
just like, Bath and Body Works always does these great promotions. Just like, you can do it with friends, and then it's even cheaper. You
Right.
can get very creative on how to do things. And when you do things for yourself, it really does help you build back better. And that's a hashtag I use all the time, because
Mm.
you can build back better. And even if the situation didn't work out now, my dad always taught me there's a reason for everything. And you may just be pleasantly surprised when you're ready to open yourself up to other new things and maybe explore a new relationship. You may find somebody who you actually click with and you actually have better chemistry with. And I encourage people not to do it right away. You've got to really take time for yourself. I always say date yourself.
Yep.
And I did, like, sometimes I would just stay home and binge watch the things I wanted,
Yep.
bring in food that I wanted, not like kid-friendly food. Sometimes I would just go walking in a park and just listen to some good music, but you really need to take time for you. It is
Mm.
the most important thing you can do to lay down this new foundation. You will, again, I'll say it again, build back better, and don't rush the process. Divorce is all about, you're going to have to go through the whole grieving, and may
Absolutely.
feel a lot of anger. Very natural. Everybody goes through it. There's no timetable for it, but you do have to do the work to get through it and get to what's the last stage in that process: acceptance. And when you
Mm.
get that, it's very freeing, and
Good.
there's something really nice about it. And I
Mhm.
think when people can do that, they're ready to start. Again, I'm going to use the hashtag, they're ready to start building back. And I have seen people do amazing things. People went back to work. People went for a promotion. People met great new partners. People took up hobbies. One woman, I think, wrote a book. Another guy discovered he loves art, and he became this, like, he was like sampling all these paintings. It was crazy.
Mhm.
So he just had the time to really pay attention to it and really hone in on his craft. So people can really do great things. And again, it's really positive for your children to see it, and your friends. It's very inspiring. And divorce doesn't have to define you, but it can be the start of something very new and something maybe better.
Absolutely. I think you tap into who you are because now you get to find out what it is that you like and what you love and really, understand who you are, right?
Yeah.
Who you are in the process. So how do we follow you? How do we get some more information about you and what you're doing?
So you can read my columns. They're all on Authority Magazine on the Medium platform. Our show, The Divorce Hour with Ilyssa Panitz, airs every Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern. And then we repeat on Sunday at 8 o'clock Eastern. After that, we become a podcast, and we're available on every single platform you can think of known to mankind. Everybody can log on to my social media handles. I like simplicity, so I just use my name
Yeah.
at Panitz. We'll always tell you things that we're working on and things that are coming up. And again, this is a space for everybody. And when I mean everybody, I mean men, women, children, your friends, your family, your bosses, your neighbors, because when people are going through a divorce, it affects so many people.
It
And
does.
I was telling, it was funny, a colleague of mine and I were talking, and we said, if we walked down any street, we'll use, we'll use Georgia, where you're based. We bet
Hmm.
we can pull 5 people randomly off the street, and we'll be like, do you know anybody who's been divorced? And somebody's like, me, I'm the product of it. Oh, my sister's going through it. Oh my God, my colleague, my boss, everybody will sit here and tell you the stories. And divorce, the statistics are true. For they're as high as 50% for first-time marriages, 60% for second, and 70% for third
Really?
marriages. Yes. And so this is so common, but again, it's like people do survive it. And
Hmm.
my mom has always taught me, when they tell you you have a life-threatening disease and you have a month to live, you cry. Until
Yep.
then, 24 hours to mourn, dust yourself off, pick up, and what are you going to do? And for me, I just saw a void in the journalism world. And when I was crying and, hugging a box of tissues, I was just like, you know what? I can't let this define me, but I can do something about it. And when I saw a void and the need to want to teach and educate and continue to do what I do, which is share information, interview amazing people who come with all this knowledge that can benefit others, I started this platform, and it has continued to grow. And I
Hmm.
think one of the things is because we don't take sides. We're just
No.
here, this is here for everybody. And we'll talk about all different kind of situations. We talk a lot about celebrity divorces, but we'll
Hmm.
use the situation. We don't know all the intimate details of these cases. We only know what's been reported, but
Right.
we will use situations, and we will say, okay, so if a person is, like you made reference to, going to social media, we talked about that when Kanye West did it. We're like,
Yeah.
but if a person, we're not here to badmouth Mr. West or Miss Kardashian. What we said was, if you have a situation where you do have a person going to social media, how can this impact a settlement? Could it impact custody, visitation? We asked this to different lawyers in all different states, and they said yes. And, it can impact the client emotionally. We may have them go talk to a therapist. It
Yeah.
can impact them. We worry about your state of mind and what you're going to say to the children. And we may say, here's what's trending in the news, but now we're going to break it down. We're going to take out the names, we're going to take out the genders, and we want to know from these experts what happens if you are working on a case like this. What do people
Right.
need to know? And again, it's there because so many people deal with people talking badly about them on social media, or people being left for a third party, or people just all of a sudden stealing the money and nobody can find where the individual is. These things are very common. But
Yeah.
again, we are here to find, I always say I've got an expert for that, and we will find an expert to help break it down in a way that you can understand. We're not going to talk above you. Legal terms are very confusing. Talking finances can be very confusing if you're not a regular CNBC viewer. So we break it down in a way that everybody can understand, and give people what they need: an education and knowledge, because knowledge is power. And again,
Absolutely.
that's what we're trying to do. When we can build up your confidence, and again, that straight back I was talking about, then what we can do is we can help you make really good decisions, and hopefully you can get to the end of your situation in the quickest way possible.
Amen to that. Ilyssa, we're gonna put all your information out here
Thank you.
because I really think it is something that the women should have access to share with their friends, to share, like with their coworkers and colleagues, because it is a very emotional journey. But like you said, if you are able to be armed with information, you should be able to get through that. Not saying that you can't feel the feelings and you can't be emotional, but understand what you're about to get into and make sure that you have good focus so that you can get to it. And like you said, build your life back, get better, and start this new journey. So I
Yeah,
appreciate you being here, and
no,
I thank you for coming on. And we definitely going to get your show and put it out there for everyone, okay?
no, thank you. We're, like I said, we are, I am here for everybody. Divorce is never going away, which
Nope.
means I'm never going away. There's always going to be something to talk about. There's going to be somebody who tunes us in, who's just starting the process in the thick of it. There may be somebody who tunes in who hasn't started it, but, may find themselves in this about a month away. I always tell people we don't promote divorce, but if
Yep,
this is going to be a situation you're finding yourself in or you're facing, we are here for you.
absolutely.
And it's, yes, it can be very, very difficult, but a lot of people come out and a lot of people they just get to write great new stories. I grew up in theater.
Yeah.
So my whole life revolved around theater. And I always say, this may have been your first act. Divorce is your intermission. I want to see what the next act brings because
I
I
know
bet you
that's
it's
right.
going to be fabulous. So you're just an intermission right now.
I know that's right. So, Alyssa, thank you so much for being here, and I
Thank
really
you.
do appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. You have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.